Welcome to the Crypto on the Block radio show, featuring industry pioneers and CEOs across various industries in blockchain and cryptocurrency. Here's your host, Matthew Loughran.
Hello and welcome back, everybody, to another show of Crypto on the Block. Again, this is your host, Matthew Loughran. Very excited for our show today. Today we have Dan Bates. Dan is the president and CEO of ImpactPPA. Dan has spent the last 10 years as president, CEO, and founder of Windstream Technologies, a recognized leader in the hybrid renewable energy systems. And under Dan, that organization has deployed projects in over 35 countries and established manufacturing facilities both in the U.S. and India. Dan, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Matthew. Good to be here.
Yeah, thanks for joining us today. So first off, would love for you to maybe tell us a little bit about yourself and obviously a little bit about ImpactPPA.
Sure. My name is Dan Bates. I've been in the renewable industry for about 10 years now. We started this company, Windstream, with the idea of adding wind and solar into a unified or a self-contained unit, a hybrid unit, so that people would have access to renewable energy 24/7, whenever the wind is blowing or the sun is shining. And in fact, we've been, as you said in the opener, we've been, shipping this product to over 35 countries. We've got about 5 megawatts on the ground and operational. And about a year ago, I was introduced to the blockchain and thought, wow, this could be a really interesting way of accelerating renewable energy deployments while also adding a component that would allow for financing of projects around the world, especially in developing nations where I primarily work, and then provide a payment rail or a payment platform so these folks in these emerging economies had a way of accessing clean energy on a pay-as-you-go model. And so we started this company, ImpactPPA, about a year ago, a little less, with that mission statement: how to quickly deploy renewable energy and provide it to users on a pay-as-you-go model. That's what got us going.
Now, you mentioned emerging markets right there as well. Which specific markets have you been looking at for ImpactPPA?
Anywhere that energy is inconsistent, non-existent, or expensive. That's really kind of our focus. I know that sounds very broad. A lot of my work was historically done in the last 10 years in India and in Africa, where energy is, it's scarce when you get out to the rural areas. Around the major city centers, there is a grid. Oftentimes that grid is supplied by diesel-generated power. So it's expensive. You got to buy that fossil fuel in order to fire up the diesel generators. So, for instance, in some countries in Africa, we're looking at 30, 40, even 50 cents a kilowatt hour. On average, here in America, a kilowatt hour costs 10 cents. When you start looking in the Caribbean, it's easily 50 cents or more for a kilowatt hour of energy. Things that we take for granted is a real expense. It's a real burden to folks out in these developing nations. So we thought we'd be able to provide clean energy inexpensively to these folks and put it all in the blockchain. So essentially what I like to say is that we use the blockchain to manage power generation or manage power from generation all the way through to payment. And that's a really unique position to be in.
Well, that is quite unique, I'd say. Maybe have you expand a little bit on what you just said, where maybe you can go in through a little bit deeper on maybe the biggest problem, within this specific energy industry. Or do you think there is a gap in the market where ImpactPPA is really going to, fill and hit the ground running?
All right, there's two parts to that question. The first part was how we got started. So when I go out and I've done projects in Africa, for instance, and anything greater than a half a megawatt or even a megawatt and up, the problem that a lot of these countries have is in order to get a large-scale project off the ground and funded, they would typically have to go to the World Bank, or they would go to USAID, Power Africa, in the case of Sub-Saharan Africa, or an African Development Bank or Regional Development, wherever it is. that's a really long and slow process for any country or municipality to go through the World Bank or NGO approval process. It's time consuming and it's expensive. So when I started looking at the blockchain as a source of capital for developing projects, because the blockchain community, they seem to me, I could be wrong, but they seem to be very open-minded towards social impact, projects that can positively affect other people's lives, as well as very much climate aware. They know that we've got to get off of fossil fuels and move to renewables. So you put social impact with climate change together and climate, concern, and I think you have a group of people that would be accepting of putting money into a token where they could see the benefit of that token in real life or in real time, how it affects people's lives. So that was the genesis of ImpactPPA. And then as it grew, it became very clear to us that we needed to provide a payment rail, a way in which the end user in market could access this clean energy from a microgrid or a utility scale grid, doesn't matter the size, even a small rooftop installation, that they can access this energy and pay for it with a means that they're comfortable with, meaning a cell phone, a mobile application, so that they can interact with a smart meter that's at their home or their small business or wherever it might be, and they can buy energy on a pay-as-you-go basis this way. That energy is purchased, it's interacted with at a smart meter. That smart meter connects to the blockchain, so now we understand a lot of information about this person who was maybe historically an unbanked, certainly an unconnected person somewhere in the world. So we can gather data now about how people use energy when they have access to it. So I think that's another really important component about what we do.
Yeah, it's very interesting you said that in regards for, them being unbanked or even unconnected, right? So what I really just heard was I can look at someone in sub-Saharan Africa where they have one of your units on top of their domicile, if you will. And because of that renewable energy, maybe it's solar, they're able to then charge their cell phone or maybe connect via their mobile device now into the internet where possibly they might not have been able to because of the lack of electricity. Would that be like a good assessment in one use case?
Oh, absolutely. But even broader than that. So as we start to deploy these systems, whether it's like you said, whether it's a small rooftop system that's doing generation straight to a home or doing microgrids that then have some transmission and distribution associated with it, but all connected through smart meters, we have the ability now to add layered services. So if you think about it, you can look at ImpactPPA as the operating system for social change, social good, meaning nothing comes from a society grows with access to energy. That's what enables people to have education, to have better health care, to have quality of life, sanitation, agriculture. You got to drive pumps to water a field, right? That takes energy, takes electricity. So we can become the operating system, if you will, that provides electricity and a mechanism for payment, and then have third parties come in and sit on top of our OS with their applications. So maybe it's water purification. A third party could come in, access our platform, and now be able to provide clean water to a village and know that they would be able to be compensated for their services through our payment rail. It broadens the scope of what we're doing exponentially, is where we're headed.
It really does, because when you were just talking right there, the first thing that jumped to my mind was clean water, right? Clean water, clean water, clean water. It's all you ever really hear about water scarcity and needing of clean water for communities, especially in developing world. And what you're really saying is with the implementation of your technology, you can then provide the energy piece for filtration, right? If you will. So what you're really doing does sound pretty revolutionary. Again, right? Distributed renewable energy solutions to empower underserved communities. But so I'd really love to, you just touched on it, but like, what do you think the impact of this will be on those specific locations?
Wow. The impact is the thing that keeps me going. The impact and realizing that is the thing that gets you out of bed in the morning. We have powered up schools all over India, a few of them in Africa, in rural locations where the kids never saw a computer. So we were able to provide power at its simplest. We were able to provide light in a schoolroom, which then grew into hooking up a computer and giving them an uplink so that they could have an internet connection, things like that. So we were able to do that for the first time, probably anywhere from 30 to 40 schools already throughout India. And that's real impact, right? Another little anecdote that I'd like to share is we did a job in Nigeria where this gentleman had a poultry farm. His chickens are running around outside in rural Nigeria, getting eaten by the wild animals. Not a good way to protect your inventory. So he put them in a house, a room that he built. Well, in summertime, that house gets really hot and they all died, right? Yeah. So we connected a unit. We connected that unit to a battery and a fan. He could blow air through his chicken coop and keep his chickens alive. Now this guy's providing poultry to his village, right? He's created a business for himself. He's got employees, and he's got a business of providing nutrition, food to his community. That's impact. Those are the kind of things that we do all over the world. And I think as we grow this with the blockchain, it's just going to get better and better.
I just, touching back on your school story right there, I'd love to know, because it's pretty emotional when you think about it. I'd love to maybe get your reaction is when you turned the computer on for the first time for those school kids, what was the reaction on their face?
I wish I was there to have filmed it. My colleagues in India do it, but it's no different than, when you turn on a light for somebody or when you illuminate the hallway of a hospital or a clinic, really, more than a hospital for the first time. I mean, the kids get bright-eyed. They look at this computer. It's something that they have seen in advertisements. They've seen it in media because, they're not without their touch points to the West. They understand what modern conveniences are and modern appliances are. They just don't have access to them. So when you show them what it can do, their eyes get bright, their smiles get huge, and that's how you start the process. That's how we educate kids going forward. Well-educated children become more productive adults, and that's one of the things that, that we're helping do in our small way.
I love it. Great story. In regards to kind of maybe looking now to the business side of things of ImpactPPA, would love to maybe hear about some of the services that you guys plan to offer that really kind of excite you the most.
Well, the services that we're providing right now are wind and solar technologies to offset a need, whether you have a connection and it's inconsistent or whether you need to add power to an existing remote location that didn't have any. We are not bound by any one application or any one technology. So if you live near a river, let's say, you could do small-scale hydro. It's a really great way of producing power, or geothermal. Any number of new technologies as they come up are things that we'll be able to provide to them. Those are kind of layered applications. Beyond that, supposing every smart meter connected to a home had a mesh network in it that connected to the microgrid and its ISP. Now we can provide internet connectivity, data communication in villages that didn't have any or won't have any because they're too remote. So there's lots of things that as we grow, we can begin adding on and provide a suite of products for rural places, rural populations around the world, around the world, India, Africa, Latin America. So the sky's the limit, really. we can do anything that, your creativity and your imagination allows for as we go forward.
I would even think about, places where natural disaster might happen, right? So if I think about it closer to home, even in Puerto Rico, and the current energy grid mess that's been going on there for several months. So I guess my question is on the deployment per, time frame and so forth. What does that look like? From obviously, I'm assuming the scale of the project would determine that as well. But can you maybe talk about a little bit about that and kind of how the process might work as well?
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. The size of the project is going to be a great gating factor as to the time, because a smaller project, half a megawatt, we could probably turn that around inside of 60 days. If, of course, the facilities are available, meaning the land. If it's a grid tie, the interconnect is known, things like that. If it's a greenfield project, it takes a little longer. But to deploy wind and solar in this fashion can be a very quick and efficient process, depending on what's needed, right? So, for instance, if we're just doing the generation piece and we're connecting to some distribution, simple. If we have to run that distribution as well, of course, we don't do it ourselves. We bring on qualified, electricians, qualified contractors to do that work, but it takes a little longer. But typically, we can get into a project from the day it's funded and start generating energy if we phase approach the installation in 60 days.
Wow. Okay, that's really quick.
Yeah, and we're doing that. I mean, you mentioned about Puerto Rico. Well, I'll be down there the week of the 12th. They're doing a lot of work around restarting Puerto Rico. We hope to be a part of that effort. But just across the water in Haiti, we've finished a project in a city called Les Ewa, which is on the west coast of Haiti, that has been without power for 2 years, almost 2.5 years now, because of Hurricane Matthew. So much like what happened to Puerto Rico with Hurricane Maria, Hurricane Matthew wiped out the whole west coast. So we are now working with the Haitian government, bringing power to these cities that haven't had it for a couple of years. So I think that it would be, the next logical step is we just replicate what we've done in Haiti in Puerto Rico.
Absolutely. So make sure you have some of those meetings when you're in town there.
Yeah, that's right.
Now you mentioned blockchain a few times. Obviously, listeners of this show are, either blockchain enthusiasts as well as, blockchain followers and cryptocurrency followers. Which blockchain are you guys building on for ImpactPPA? So
we're on the Ethereum platform right now. It scales. It has, the ability to write smart contracts very quickly and easily. So we understand how that works. Our CTO has a vast, history of experience writing in Solidity and writing successful smart contracts. So we've got that piece. He and his team have that piece really, really covered. The Ethereum platform is most widely deployed. There are lots of other things coming out, and we intend to be as platform agnostic as possible. Just like we are energy generation, we want to be so on the blockchain so that we use the best of the best whenever we can.
I like it. In regards for the business itself with ImpactPPA, what are maybe some of the company's biggest threats?
The biggest threats? Wow, what a tough question that is. Because, when I look at the energy landscape, since I've been doing this for so long, a decade, in these rural areas, most of the threats would come from the inability to know how to navigate that market and how to work in a rural, remote part of the world. So we understand that. We've done it now for 10 years and have a list of customers and relationships a mile long. So that part of it, that risk part or that threat part, I think is pretty well handled. Scale will be an issue, right? Can we get the platforms to scale so they don't become an impediment to us rolling out? And one of the ways of looking at that is my team is, really diving very deeply into state channels to allow us to scale on the Ethereum platform more quickly. Those are the big threats that I see. Of course, there are things I'm sure that we don't know, and we have to be agile, and we have to be able to adapt, which I think we do very well.
And it sounds like, obviously, the energy market's massive on a global scale. What you're doing is very unique, going into these rural areas, developing, and really filling that void and need. In regards for, public crowd sales, how does this differ to things that you're seeing in the market?
Where I think we're different, and I've seen a lot of crowd sales and a lot of companies on the blockchain, and I think, a lot of it's just so awesome, and I'm really excited about how this technology really, really can change the world, can change the future of how we do business. What I also see, though, is a lot of companies that do a lot of the events and a lot of marketing and a whole lot of talking, but they're not doing anything tangible. And I think the way that we differ from a lot of the other companies is my attitude was, let's just go build it. If you build it, they will come. So this is kind of my field of dreams, right? I wanted to go build something and prove that it works and prove that there is a audience for the products and the energy generation, and that the audience in the blockchain world, the crypto community, would see the value in what we're doing and want to be part of it. So that's how I think we are different. We're getting our boots dirty. We're on the ground doing stuff right now. The application works. We have a pilot running, with our mobile app on a cell phone. So that's running a smart contract. So it works. We've got a lot of blocking and tackling to do. We've got a lot of work to finish it out, to make it successful. But I have no doubt that we will accomplish that.
Well, there's definitely no lack of demand for the actual product itself, in the way that you're tackling the energy market, and I think you hit the nail on the head, right? So I talked to a lot of blockchain CEOs, right? And there's some that all they do is talk and market, right? And there's others that really get their hands dirty, dive in, and want to be at a revenue generating standpoint, right? A crowd sale is typically step one of launching an organization, and I feel like there's been so many companies and blockchain startups that have, we know since 2017, there's a large percentage that don't exist anymore. So the ones, moving forward really need to get themselves to a stage where you're talking about, right? Is having that product ready, getting a real business plan together. And part of that is going to be revenue, right? So I would love to maybe have you discuss, ImpactPPA's revenue model. Like, how do you see the organization growing?
Sure. So I want to just go back to what you said. One of the things about a lot of CEOs, and I don't want to bash anybody, but I think it's really important that not only do we do the hard work of doing the crowd sale and doing, the public token sale, right? But it's really important that you respect those people who put money into that company, and you work for them. At the end of the day, you work for them. And you want to see the company successful, obviously for personal reasons and team reasons, but you've got to be respectful for the people who gave you the opportunity to make it happen. So that's not lost on me. About the revenue model, we make money the following ways. We go to the crowd. The crowd funds a project. They have voting rights. They have decision-making rights over what projects the company will embark on and deploy. Once deployed, then we sell the energy to the end user so that on a per kilowatt hour basis or per megawatt hour basis, if it's a utility company, we get paid for the energy that we generate. And it's all measured and monitored and reported to us on the blockchain through our smart meters. The revenue that flows back to the company is then shared with the company and with what we call the gen pool. We have two tokens. The first token, which is the value token that derives the revenue, if you will, or the capital from which to install a project. That's called the MPAC, MPQ. And then the token or the credit, we call it the Gen credit, the cryptocurrency that's used to transact in the market is called a Gen credit. So the Gen credits are sold in the market. That generates the revenue. Revenue flows back to the company. 70% of the net profits go back into the business for subsequent projects, while 30% is used to buy back token from the market. That's our model.
So just so I can clarify that, owners of the MPQ token, then they would have the voting availability on which project. So if, the Haitian government has 3 projects on deck for you, they would be able to actually vote which one to move forward on. Is that kind of what you mean?
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly right. Yeah. So the community gets to have a voice in where their money is deployed.
Okay, interesting. And then obviously the Gen token is that what the end user is then purchasing for their energy through that mobile app that you're talking about. So as
that's right.
The example earlier, right? The guy with the solar on his small little house, or he's powering his fan to save his chickens. He's paying in Gen credits to then, access that energy. Is that correct?
That's correct. Exactly right. Are you familiar with M-Pesa?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think it's one of the best business cases for any type of digital currency on the planet. So yeah, absolutely.
Right. And, I don't know if you're aware of it, but M-Pesa powers about 70% of the transactions in East Africa now. And for those of your listeners who don't know, M-Pesa is a mobile payment platform. It's like Venmo here. It's a mobile payment platform in East Africa. So when we're saying we're going to put the Gen credit on people's phones, they already know how to transact. They get it. They're doing it now. So we're not going to have to go out and educate the audience. That
was going to be a question of mine, right? Is one of the barriers in the cryptocurrency market is the education factor. And it's one of the pitfalls that many organizations lack to see when you're looking at market adoption of their products is, they're trying to impact certain level of consumer, but that consumer, they're not going to, go to an exchange and go through KYC and understand how to buy a Bitcoin and then trade that for something else. It's not realistic. So one thing I really like about your specific model is you're basically inserting your organization into a process that they're familiar with, especially in East Africa, in regards to the M-Pesa community. So absolutely.
Yeah. So that was one of the drivers about how we designed the system. We didn't want to get to a point where it was foreign to the user. And let's face it, if we're out in, the middle of Ghana or the middle of Tanzania, where the folks have cell phones, they need power. And candidly, they may not be the most educated in the world, right? Certainly this would be all new to them for sure. We can't run the risk of having to educate the population on how to use an app or how to use a trading platform in order to buy power. Has to be simple.
Absolutely. So I have a question here for you, Dan. Obviously, you're in the process right now, right? Launching, running the company. Typically, there's always priorities that come up, right? And I'd say barriers you have to break through. I would maybe love for you to share maybe kind of how do you prioritize some of those things that when you have a million things on your plate every single day, right? What is your kind of maybe go-to way to prioritize those to have the most impact for your organization?
Right now where we're at is we are focused on building the technology, continuing the deployment of it, and of course finishing up our crowd sale and getting to our public sale. We're doing a pre-sale or a private round now, and we're moving forward into a public sale on April 22nd, which just coincidentally happens to be Earth Day. So to prioritize my time right now, it's all about focus on completing our public sale rounds so that we have the capital needed to go deploy the projects that we already have contracted or are in discussion with. That's my goal. I mean, I want to have this thing done as quickly as we can in late April so that in May and June, we're installing equipment. Because once we install and commission these systems, we begin generating revenue. We begin making money for the company from which we will grow and continue further deployments. So to prioritize, to recap your question, it's all about getting through this public process and getting to the actual fun part, which is the building of the business and the going out and turning the lights on in, rural parts of the world.
Absolutely. And then you mentioned, the public sale and so forth. So if our listeners, if they really want to learn a little bit more about ImpactPPA and participation in the public crowd sale, how would they be able to do that?
The way to do it's real simple. You go to our website, ImpactPPA.com, and learn about what the company does through the information that we've provided on the web. We have a whitelist. You can sign up for the whitelist. You can download our white paper. Any number of ways that you can gain information about what we do should be all up on the web. And certainly there are communication channels, Telegram and others, that if there are questions that your listeners have, please feel free to send them in. We'll turn them around as quickly as we can. We're really good about that and eager to learn from the audience about what they like and even what they don't like about our model. So again, it's real simple, ImpactPPA.com, and learn from there.
And then I know you mentioned Puerto Rico. Do you have any events coming up that in case our listeners maybe might be around, they actually might be able to come see you in person?
Well, if you're going to be in Puerto Rico, we're going to be at Coin Agenda for sure, which is the latter part of the week of the 12th. I believe it's 16 and 17. I don't have a calendar in front of me. And we'll be at Crypto Puerto as well. A little later on in the calendar, we're going to be doing the show in Dubai, the blockchain show in Dubai on April 16th and 17th as well. It's a month apart, yeah.
Great.
So please, feel free to jump in and ask questions and learn more about what we're doing.
Perfect. So Dan, again, thank you very much for taking the time for coming on the show today. I know how busy you are in, again, getting those priorities put together, right? Getting that dev taken care of, getting this public crowd sale taken care of as well, as you can, finish off and really get your hands dirty in the fun stuff, right? And getting those lights turned on. So I really appreciate you coming in on the show today and sharing a little bit about yourself as well as ImpactPPA. And again, wish you all the best of luck in the rest of your crowd sale. And then everyone, obviously, feel free to subscribe to all new episodes for the show down below. And Dan, just a pleasure to have you on.
Great, thank you very much. I appreciate your time, and I'm glad you invited me on. Thanks, Matt.
Thanks for tuning in to the Crypto on the Block radio show with Matthew Loughran. Please subscribe, like, share, and comment. Tune in next time.